It's so great to be with you all. I love nothing more than to talk with mission-driven business people about branding, because what I have seen is how much really paying attention to your brand can help advance your business. This session is about how branding is not just for the big dogs. And one of the reasons I love this topic is because I know what it's like to be a small business owner. I know what it's like to feel small, to feel unseen, to feel unheard. And at some point in my life, I learned that creativity was a great vehicle to get your message across in an effective way. And so it was a natural extension of that learning for me to go into advertising and branding as a career. And I've had the lucky experience of being able to work for Fortune 500 corporations, national retailers, manufacturers, large hospitals, large banks. But at some point in my career, I lost my mojo. I don't know if any of you have ever had that, but I hit a point where I said, I am giving so much and I'm not feeling the love or the passion anymore like I once did. And what I realized at that point is that I was in the right profession, but I was working in the wrong area. How many more computers or tech subscriptions or retail experiences could I sell? And at that point, I refocused my career on serving mission-driven organizations, including individuals like all of you who are members of Good Business Colorado. And today, this is my focus. I want to share this because, once again, this statement is not just for big organizations, it's for all of us. And it's coming from a person who's been pretty successful in business, whether you agree with his policies or not. Steve Forbes has been on record saying your brand is the single most important investment you can make. And so me being a brander, I'm going to take that one and hang on to it. A lot of you have dropped different brands into the chat. These are the big dogs, right? Every single one of these logos represents a company that is on the list of the world's most valuable brands. And if you slide your eyeballs over to the right, that silver apple, that apple is the number one most valuable brand in the world today. And I read a recent report that brand alone, having nothing to do with the inventory, the stores, the technology, that brand alone is worth $240 billion. And it's worth that because they have built it, they have maintained it, they have evolved it over the years, but kept a certain amount of consistency as well. It's also worth that because last year they spent $1.8 billion on their marketing, branding, and promotional budget. Anybody on this call spending $1.8 billion on marketing this year? All right, not seeing any new notes in the chat. So I'm assuming nobody has a budget that big, and you don't have to. I think the key thing here that we want to talk about today, you don't have to have a budget like that, but you do want to pay attention to it as a business owner, because what we know is that businesses with a strong brand can command a higher price, ward off competitive threats, improve their internal culture because your team is all playing from the same playbook. And then for this group, I'm adding a special one. It can also help you align with a higher purpose because you are consistently and intentionally representing your business to the world. Now, coming from an advertising agency standpoint, a lot of times when we think about branding, the focus is on that cool logo or a catchy tagline. I mean, we just looked at a screen of those very valuable logos. But the reality is your brand is represented by much more than a logo, a name, or a tagline. It's really that overall impression of your vision, of your mission, of your values, of your leadership, of your staff as your culture. Every time one of you as a business leader steps forward to represent your business, that is actually a brand experience. For example, if I'm representing a brand called KidGlov, you can imagine that I am all about treating people with great care. If I jumped out and was grouchy and yelling at people, that would not be a true brand experience, right? So even my personal tone is a part of the brand. As a matter of fact, as Tess and I got on the call today, I even left because I wanted to make sure I had a branded coffee mug to include in this presentation. So at KidGlov, let me share one more thing here with you. This is one of my favorite quotes about branding. Branding represents a short.
Unmute yourself if you have something to say. Jesse, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Branding represents a shortcut, an instant recognition of what an organization stands for. It's relationship building that starts with a covenant or a promise that an organization makes. So another way to think about this is I was taught to think about the fact that you have a brand bank account, and everything that you do is either a debit or a deposit into that bank account. But if you are making debits from that account, meaning you are doing things that are inconsistent with your brand or confusing to your audience, that means your brand equity is decreasing. So at KidGlov, we have a process that we call the brand advancement process. It's our best practice for working with organizations that have modest budgets to make really great branding accessible to them. And what I want to do today is not take you through that entire process, but I'm going to give you 4 tools that will help you think about your own brand and help you explore this process on your own. And that includes an audience persona template, a brand archetype profile, an overview of foundational messaging, and I want to introduce you to a concept called the brand pyramid. So as we think about audience personas, I love this quote to get us started. And one thing you'll learn about me is I do love quotes from people. I think that they set the stage for different topics that we want to share. But I love this quote from Meredith Hill that when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And sometimes as marketers or business owners that are thinking about creating a brand, we forget to stop and think about the fact that there are people that are going to receive this branding, that are going to receive this messaging, and they're going to receive it in different ways. And you want to be empathetic to your target audience. So anyone who says to me, hey, my target audience is literally everyone, I'm going to challenge you on that. What you may instead have is a fabric of niche audiences or a fabric of diverse audiences. But the more you can focus on an audience and think about speaking to a human that represents that audience, the more effective your messaging would be. And I'd love, this would be a great place to use the chat. Would you all help me by, in the chat, drop in some of your target audiences that you work with, so we can kind of think through who everybody is talking to. And while you're doing that, I'm going to skip to the next slide. So drop your target audiences into that chat. All right. Thank you for that. Mid to late 40s parents. Awesome. You've got that down to the fact that you're talking to parents, you know what their age are. ages. So that gives you some clues as to who you're talking to. Mid to upper level nonprofit development and communications managers and directors. Yes, that gives you a really good feel for who you're talking to. What I've put up on the screen here is a tool that we call the target audience persona. And if you use this tool, it is going to help you develop empathy and really get focused on who you're speaking to. So what you want to do when you use this tool, we always like to pull in a representative image of the target audience. We like to give them a name. We like to have a quote that describes the audience from their voice, a section that shares everything you know about that audience, or at least the high-level things that you can fit into 5 to 10 sentences, the threats and opportunities, the affiliation, and their attitudes towards the brand. And I'm going to give you some examples. And once again, if you download the slides, you will get a feel for this. So this is an example of a target audience persona for a healthcare product producer. They could come to us and say, hey, our target is adults age 35 to 55 from across the country. And that does narrow it in, but we worked with them to really lean into a couple of different segments within that audience. So the first segment of their audience that they looked at was the dutiful daughter. So as we think about Monica, this gives us a good picture of her. She's probably 45, married. She's from Denver. She's a consultant that travels. She has a family and she has a high activity level. As we think about Monica, what we know is there's a large segment of their audience that's very similar to Monica. So we've identified some facts about this segment of the audience that speaks to her lifestyle. We've identified some of Monica's concerns, her pain points, and some psychological drivers. So what's key about this example is the about leads to the concerns, which leads to the pain points, which leads to the psychological drivers, which tells us how we should speak to Monica and what is the information she's going to want to know, which would be very different from this second profile, which is Sonia, who's in a profile that we call the manic mom. She's probably 32, married, lives in Austin. She's a full-time mom. She has 2 kids. Her activity level is moderate because she's probably driving all over the place. And then as we've really dived into this segment of the audience, we can look at her pain points and her psychological drivers and get a feel for how they are different. And then Justin, who works in the labor field, Justin has a completely different set of background information, pain points, and psychological drivers. So if you can take your audience to this level of empathy and this level of human connection, everything that you do is going to be more focused on communicating to them as humans. So this tool is in your packet. I'm going to encourage everyone to really focus in on at least 1 to 3 different segments of your audience so that you've got a good feel for who you're talking to. The second tool that I said that I'd share with you is the brand archetype profile. And we at KidGlov really believe in giving your brand a personality and defining that personality. So if you have, as a business owner or as a marketer, have ever had an occasion where somebody has maybe written something for you or designed something for you, and it just feels like it doesn't fit, right? It just feels like it's not right, but it's factually correct. It's probably because the brand archetypes are off. So this quote from Pam Moore, giving a brand a personality is what separates your brand from the status quo. It's what sets you apart, and it's actually what humanizes your brand as well. So the tool that we like to use here is a tool called Brand Archetypes. And Here is a pro tip for you. If you are interested in diving into brand archetypes on your own, there is a book called The Hero and the Outlaw by a woman named Margaret Pearson. It's kind of like the Strengths Finder book, if you've ever explored the Gallup Strengths Finders, where the first 30 pages help you understand what your brand archetype is. And then you can lean into just the pages that follow up with your brand archetype. So in this book and using this framework, there are 12 different brand archetypes. The archetypes fit into 4 different quadrants based on belonging and independence and skillfulness and stability. And all of these, you can kind of, as you look at them, from sage to hero to outlaw to creator to caregiver, even when I just say those words, you get a feel for what those brand archetypes are. So I'd like to take a few minutes and have you each think about your brand archetypes. And this is a very simple tool. There are many more things that you can use to dive into brand archetypes further. But what I'd love for you to do, there are currently 48 words on the screen. If you've got this downloaded, please circle the 5 words that best describe the organization that you represent. And if you can't circle them, just write them down for me, the 5 words out of these 48. Done. Thanks, Latoya, for being the first one to type done in the chat. Great, Tess, Kevin, Molly, Jennifer. All right, you're going so fast now, I can't keep up. Fantastic. All right, you've picked your 5 words and you've circled your 5 words. So I'm going to use this as an example. The 5 words that describe KidGlov are partner, passionate, creator, visionary, and catalyst. And you all have your 5 words. So here's the key. Those bold words at the top of the box, those align with a brand archetype. I am hoping in most cases, your words will span 2 to 3 boxes. And if you span 5 boxes, that's too many. We're going to have to pick 3 from the 5. But could you help me one more time? Would a few of you drop in for me? If you've chosen your words and you've identified the boxes that represent your brand archetypes, drop what your top 2 or 3 brand archetypes are into the box, just so I know this is making sense. So as an example, for KidGlov, our brand archetypes are lover, creator, and magician. Danielle, okay, Kevin, passionate, creator, thinker, explorer, regular gal, and explorer. Fantastic. All right, you guys are good at this. You've got this down. Ooh, creator and outlaw. I love a good outlaw brand. You can have some fun with that. When you download these slides, what you're going to see is I am including a profile of each of these brand archetypes. So if you don't want to go and buy the book, which I would say it's a good investment, you've at least got some basic things here when you download this information. So if you are a caregiver brand, what we know is the motto of the caregiver is love your neighbor as yourself. Caregiver brands often serve the public sector. They help people stay safe. They help people care for themselves. If you have creator, I've seen a lot of you have creator. Those of us that are in the marketing field, a lot of us have creator in our brand archetypes. If you're a creator brand, your motto is, if you can imagine it, it can be done. Creators include Crayola, Beethoven, Shakespeare. These brands promote self-expression. They have a do-it-yourself aspect. They often have customers that have the time to be creative or that might look to them to be creative on their behalf. The everyman, I think honestly, this one needs to be rebranded. It's referred to sometimes as the everyman, the regular guy or girl. Sometimes you might think about this as your friendly neighbor. The everyman is all for one and one for all. If you're an everyman brand, your product or service is probably highly accessible. You speak to people as a friend or neighbor, kind of a friend in the business type of persona. Every man or regular guy, girl has a down-to-earth organizational culture. Explorers are about crossing boundaries. They're more focused on the journey than the end result. Heroes, what I love about a good hero brand is that most hero brands will first tell you, shucks, I'm not a hero. In which case, though, they're helping people achieve their goals and therefore they're a hero brand. Nike, one of those big brands that we mentioned earlier, Nike is a hero brand. They're all about just do it. They're all about getting you out there and getting you exercising wherever you're at. The innocent brand, I've seen somebody drop innocent into the chat. The innocent brand is all about life as it should be. Ivory Soap, Disney, McDonald's are all innocent brands. Jesters love to have fun. Pepsi is a great jester brand. Ben & Jerry's, Southwest Airlines. These are brands that are willing to have some fun. Lovers are very passionate. My favorite lover brand is Haagen-Dazs ice cream. If you've seen a Haagen-Dazs commercial, it's not about the ingredients. It's all about that beautiful Haagen-Dazs footage. Magicians are about transformation. Outlaws are rebel. They do things that are radically different on purpose. Harley Davidson and MTV are big outlaw brands. Rulers create order from chaos. They take control and lead. Microsoft, American Express, Rolex are awesome ruler brands. And then finally, the Sage brand is all about knowledge and truth. So if your brand has to do with education or specific expertise, you probably have Sage in your profile. So that's a very quick overview. But once again, I strongly suggest either dive into this presentation to find your brand archetype profile or go grab the Hero and the Outlaw book. The key to having a brand archetype profile that has 2 or 3 archetypes is that it gives you some flexibility versus leaning completely into one. At KidGlov, we actually work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and almost every human service nonprofit organization will have a strong connection to the caregiver brand archetype. And if we just stopped with one, they wouldn't have the opportunity to differentiate with that full profile. So once again, thanks you all for putting your brand archetype profiles into the chat. All right, let's talk a little bit about the third tool, which is foundational messaging. And as we go through this tool, we're going to talk about how to set up your foundational messaging. And then I'm going to give you a before and after example that will also tie in the brand archetypes so you can get a feel for how to put those brand archetypes to use. But to set up this whole idea of foundational messaging, I love this quote from John Rockefeller. Next to doing the right thing, the most important thing is to let people know that you're doing the right thing. So I think one of the most overrepresented and incorrect quotes that sometimes gets used in business is, if you build it, they will come. That may have worked for Field of Dreams, but it doesn't work for most of us as business owners. So we need to be strategic about getting our message out. And here are some tools that will help you do that. We are strong believers that at the core of this process, is really understanding your unique brand promise. And in order to have a unique brand promise, you need to create a statement about your organization that is true, that is believable, that is relevant, and that is competitively unique. So, truth, that makes a lot of sense to people, right? We all know that what we need to put and use in advertising needs to be true. We add believable as a characteristic because if you're sharing the truth, but people don't believe it, it's not going to take you very far. So the believable one is an important test. Relevant means that what you're talking about needs to matter to your target audience. So once again, let's tie that back to the target audience personas that you're going to put together. As you look at your brand promise statement, think through, will those top 2 or 3 personas care? Ultimately, you might have different messaging for different audiences, but at your core, your unique brand promise should speak to your top key audiences. And then finally, we want that message to be competitively unique. Once again, I know that in this space of new business and in the space of Good Business Colorado, I think there's more collaborators than competitors, but it is important for consumers and your potential clients to really understand why you are different from others in the same space. It's not chest pounding when you do it right. It's helping your consumer really understand why they should come to you over someone else. So here's an example. I'm going to take you through how we fill this out. And if you'll bear with me, I'm going to use this for KidGlov, just in full transparency. And I know there's other awesome advertising agencies, I think, on this call as part of Good Business Colorado. So shout out to all of you. But if I were going to start with our unique brand promise, if I put in, hey, KidGlov is an awesome advertising agency, that's true. It's probably believable. I don't know, maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not, but it's definitely not competitively unique. There's a lot of awesome advertising agencies in the world and on this call today. So let's take it a step further. And once again, the reason there are 3 spaces on this chart is because you might have to go at this a couple of times before you can check all the boxes. So KidGlov is an awesome advertising agency that achieves results. Yes, true. Yes, I would hope it's believable. Yes, it's relevant because most people invest in advertising, marketing, and branding because they want to advance their business. Once again, not competitively unique. So let's take this one step further. KidGlov is an advertising agency achieving results for mission-focused organizations so they can make the world a better place. That is where we landed for KidGlov as our brand promise. And it's a very different brand promise than where we started. And you can see that that leads right into our mission statement, which is we put a megaphone in front of those doing good in the world. You can see if you connect the dots, that mission statement would not be possible with the first or the second brand promise that was on this sheet. So I encourage you all to grab this sheet and for your organization, sit down and try on some different lines. Maybe you'll get it the first try. Maybe it'll take 3, maybe it'll take 6, maybe you need to pull your team together to do this work. So another great quote here, and I'm going to talk about how we pull this together into foundational messaging. It doesn't matter how good the choir is if everyone is singing from different song sheets, it's just noise. Once you have that brand promise, you want to convert that into some usable messaging that you can use consistently if you're a solopreneur. But if you have a team and you have advocates, and you have people who are speaking on your behalf, you want them to be able to speak consistently. And here's another tip that I've got for you all. Consistency is important in marketing and branding because consistency translates to quality and trustworthiness. When you represent yourself in a consistent fashion, people get to know you and they get the feeling that they know what to expect from you. And that creates a long-term, unshakable bond. As a matter of fact, if you can avoid it, we would like you to never use the words quality or trust in your marketing, or never claim that you're quality or trustworthy, because people should just feel that versus you having to tell them that. So how do we pull this together? You want to have a messaging package, and the messaging package should describe who you are, what you do, how you do it, and why anyone should care. So we're going to pull that into two really key tools: foundational messaging and a tagline. And the foundational messaging is a statement that is in your brand voice, so using those brand archetypes, that articulates who you are and what you do in a manner that is true, believable, relevant, and competitively unique. So it needs to really be rooted in that brand promise you're going to create. Your tagline then is a very concise phrase used to create a memorable impression and convey the essence of your brand. Usually a tagline is 7 words or less, and often a tagline is something that's locked up with your logo. And the designers out there will know what I mean, but it's in a consistent graphic file with your logo, so you're using it over and over and over again. So I'm going to share with you a before and after messaging package with an organization that we've had the opportunity to work with. So St. Monica's came to us, and their tagline was on the left, locked up with their logo, behavioral health services for women. This is how they describe themselves. St. Monica's is committed to the recovery of women of all ages through empowerment, stability, and self-fulfillment. St. Monica's is a behavioral health treatment organization dedicated to serving women. We give women a safe place and the skills they need to change their own lives. We are a trauma-informed substance abuse treatment campus that provides a gender-specific, individualized, loving atmosphere. We incorporate evidence-based practices and spiritual choice for women and their families. Now, there was really nothing wrong with that. It was accurate. It was grammatically correct. But what I'm going to ask you is, do you really, Tess Cohen, I love you. Can you guess their brand archetypes? I'd love for you to guess their brand archetypes. And I'm going to show you their brand archetypes as we go along as well. Let me show you the after. Once you go through and you do the work, you identify your target audiences, you know your brand archetypes. Sage and caregiver, great guess, Chantel. Once you know those brand archetypes, once you have your brand messaging, you can do something that's more like this. So St. Monica's is a lover, caregiver, ruler brand archetype. So you can see with their rebrand, their new logo is much more emotional and passionate. We're really focusing in to women as a target audience. So this new logo also is much more feminine. Their new tagline is life-changing recovery for women. So what this does as a new tagline in how many words is that? In 5 short words, We're speaking to what they do and the real emotional value of their work. Their new foundational messaging is this: empowering women to feel they are worth their recovery is what St. Monica's is all about. We help women be the best they can be for today and moving forward. Through gender-specific, trauma-informed care, St. Monica's provides a safe place for women to come and get well, to make positive changes, gain new skills, and discover strengths. St. Monica's is a team of passionate, caring women who help other women overcome some of life's most challenging struggles, helping them live better, healthier lives. So do you feel the difference between the two? When they're going out and speaking in the community and they're sharing about themselves, this new verbiage really separates them from others in the same consideration set. And this key here that I'm sharing right now shows you the new words and how they tie together. The pink words are their caregiver words: recovery, help, moving forward, get well, caring, helping, healthier. The lover words, the passionate words: feel their worth, safe place for women, passionate. And then those ruler words, which this is a very interesting profile because ruler is very different than caregiver and lover, but yet it's about bringing order to chaos. Those words are empowering, the best they can be, positive changes, skills, strengths, and overcome. So you can feel the difference of how this new language really sets a path forward for them that brings everything we've talked about together into one package. I want to share one more thing here, and then we'll have a few minutes to open this up for questions. But this last section is about what I call the brand pyramid. And I love this quote from Michael Eisner, who was the CEO of Disney, a company that knows a little bit about branding. A brand is a living entity. It is enriched or undermined cumulatively over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures. And we like to look at a brand hierarchy or a brand profile pyramid because as you think about marketing and advertising, the 1,000 small gestures are made up of a lot of different things: name, logo, tagline, messaging, graphic identity, and marketing and advertising. So not one of those elements by itself has to carry your brand. It's how they all work together. And then beyond that, how your staff acts, how you act, all of the other things that we mentioned earlier come into part of that as well. But here's an example of an organization and their brand hierarchy profile. Davis Design is an architecture and engineering firm. Their new tagline is "Making Ideal Happen." The core of their foundational messaging is that Davis Design offers a complete spectrum of architecture, engineering, and interior design services. We listen to your desires, explore options, and respond with thoughtful intentionality to turn your ideal into reality. This next layer is some of their visual identity, and their marketing is pretty much made up of relationship selling, stationery, website, social, and proposals. Here's how their brand is executed in the world. And just to give you a feel, this is their old logo. So what I'm going to tell you is, after they launched their new brand and started using it consistently, they closed $51 million worth of deals in the next 6 months. I'm not going to take complete credit for that, but I will guarantee you the brand helped make it easier to do that work. Another example of a brand archetype profile from a very different brand is Matt Talbot. Their tagline is "Bold Hope." And here's just the oversight of their brand. how it's used in the world, and just to give you a comparison, their old identity and their new identity. So we have a few minutes for questions. I see one that's in the world or in the chat. Before I answer questions, I'm going to leave you with a quote of my own to just have you think about the importance of branding. But I like to say that sloppy branding is the equivalent of wearing yoga pants to a job interview. And yes, I know if you're on Zoom, you might all be wearing yoga pants, but you know what I mean. So let's take some questions. I see one from Papa Bear. Tess, do we have a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we have 4 more minutes. And we do have the one, I think Papa Bear's was more of a really quite lovely comment.
Oh, great. Okay.
About their organization providing outdoor adventures to children with terminal or life-threatening diseases. We do, as folks are dropping things into the chat, we have a couple of questions in Hova. So the first one is, a business card has always been an easy way to present the brand when meeting new people, and the first step at creating a memorable impression. I'm also just going to post this into the chat so folks can read it too. Awesome. Many people prefer to get digital contact information, and skip the business cards, which is excellent for the environment, but feels less personable. Do you have tips on presenting the brand digitally in that first interaction?
I love that. You know, what I'm going to say first is I would look at every opportunity where you represent yourself as an option or an opportunity to brand yourself. And the low cost or free opportunities are a fantastic place to think about it. Also, your business card, whether it is paper or digital, is going to be one of the things you use most often. So it's worth really thinking about. So there's a lot of different platforms right now out there for digital business cards. I don't necessarily have a favorite one, but what I'm going to say is just really be thoughtful about the graphics you use, your opportunities to incorporate a visual identity that matches with who you are, and the opportunity to include words and phrases. Tess, I know you love hi, hello, and you can brand it. I would say if you even have an opportunity to use a free version that's unbranded, or to spend just the tiniest little bit of money to up level to get some branding in there, I would definitely say it's worth it to spend on that branding. All right. Any other questions for today? I see that here are the slides. Please feel free to grab those slides. This QR code, if you grab it from here or you go to the KidGlov website, we have several free resources, from how to create your message into a movement to content marketing. We also have several blog posts in there, such as how to maximize the value of a sponsorship, when to speak out on social issues, the importance of incorporating diversity into your marketing, all kinds of resources on that website. So give that a look, or if you have questions after this session and you'd like to hit me up via email and LinkedIn, I'm always game for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for bringing your expertise. I know I was furiously taking lots of notes during your presentation. So yeah, really terrific content.
Thanks, everyone.